Hello, kia ora, g'day. I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube with your Australia-only weather forecast through the weekend and into next week, recorded on Thursday, the 27th of November. Let's have a look at the latest thunderstorms and rain at the moment. I couldn't put the satellite on today. There was a glitch in it and it was flickering quite a lot. But we've got the rain radar, the thunderstorms, and also the air pressure lines on there. And what that shows you is this sort of line that goes from Brisbane through to about Alice Springs, maybe actually goes further out into a little bit of Western Australia. That line of convergence, that is where we're seeing the tropical boundary measured by that red line. So therefore the air north of that red line is heavier, full of moisture, full of heat. Whereas the airflow south of the blue line, the polar boundary, that is colder, drier, lighter air. So that colder airflow is moving in to Australia, mixing with the red tropical boundary. And that's the reason why we're seeing those thunderstorms that are popping up to the north there. Also worth noting, the blue line here around Tasmania, showers on the west coast, indicating, of course, that the polar boundary has returned to Tasmania for a time today. And you've got windy westerlies carrying on across there. The darker shading on the map means mostly low pressure, but there is a little bubble of high pressure around South Australia that sort of just is helping to alter the airflow a little bit and maybe limit some of the Southern Ocean airflows from coming further northwards for a brief time, because this next high, little baby low on the side of it, but this next high dredging up also a southerly there for the southern parts of Western Australia. So it may not be cold inland, but certainly there is a bit of a refreshing change for some of you coming through at the moment with that west to southwest wind, and that is pushing those thunderstorms further northwards, although the red tropical boundary line doesn't shift. So while we do see a drier area here in the southeast of Queensland, you're still going to be feeling the heat and the humidity even into parts of New South Wales. So don't expect it to be cooler or colder for those of you further northwards. But the cooler airflows do remain in the south. We've got southwesterly winds around Tasmania, southerly winds here coming into South Australia. And as I said yesterday, low pressure spinning here over South Australia. So as that does that on Friday, we'll see some thunderstorms forming here in some areas, some heavy downpours, some slow-moving downpours as well, plus the refreshing, I will call it that, airflow from the Southern Ocean coming in to those of you in places like Adelaide at some point. Although keep in mind, low pressure around for a time, that'll be dragging down some warmer airflows. Further to the north, everywhere where you see blue on the map, that's a risk of a shower. But as I've said, sometimes that's just a cloud buildup and it doesn't actually rain at your house, but it rains at your neighbour's property 10 k's down the road. That is certainly possible here through parts of Queensland and the Northern Territory as we go into Friday, but much drier if you're out there over parts of New South Wales. Into Saturday, and thunderstorms shift from South Australia, although they're still here on the northern eastern sides of South Australia. Now it shifts over into parts of Victoria, southern parts of New South Wales, yet another southerly change sweeping northwards. That will help relieve some of the heat and humidity in South Australia, and eventually it'll do that into New South Wales as well. So lower temperatures coming through. Yes, the polar boundary is getting closer, and that is coming in for the start of next week, as you're just about to see. But again, a lot of showers and thunderstorms popping up now over Queensland, over the Northern Territory, not so much over Western Australia, especially the southern half where the easterly winds are blowing through at the moment. So not really as wet or as humid down there in the southern half of Western Australia. As we jump to Sunday, the polar boundary, which I still can't believe that I'm highlighting it every day. Every day we have to highlight the polar boundary. Now last year I don't even remember talking about it. This year it certainly is around, really over the top of Tasmania, once again bringing a drop in temperatures for you. Check out your local temperatures and see they should be dipping either on Sunday or on Monday as that polar boundary returns. Now the next big high, south of Western Australia, south of Perth, that one is also going to work in tandem with the low pressure moving in around or near Tassie to drive in this colder wind that's on its way. So the red tropical boundary is going northwards a little bit as we go into the weekend. Goes further north of Brisbane, leaves New South Wales. Like I say, you'll still be feeling hot weather in these areas, but it may not be quite as hot as we get to that point going through to Sunday. But severe thunderstorms possible further up the coastline of Queensland and around the tropical north, the top end, and Catherine, also seeing severe thunderstorm risk here on Sunday. Let's go to Monday. Now, believe it or not, Monday is the 1st of December, at least on the meteorological calendar. The astronomical calendar, you've got to wait a few more weeks for spring to end. So this is looking like a bit of a miserable Monday, to be honest with you. Adelaide, Melbourne, Hobart, the three big cities in the southeast, seeing those temperatures going down on Monday, getting colder as we go through the day, especially into Victoria and into Tasmania. And believe it or not, there might even be a bit of snow around, obviously at the very highest elevations of Tasmania, and potentially later on around the Victoria Alps, going into New South Wales, the mountains around the A.C.T. It feels a little crazy to be talking about that, but the high coming in over the Great Australian Bight, stretching down off the screen and helping to dredge up that colder southerly wind. Around New South Wales, most of New South Wales, other than the southwest corner, sort of separate from that to begin with, although that could change at night time. And going into Queensland, again, like north of Sunshine Coast, that's where you're feeling the heat and the humidity. Severe thunderstorms up here around Cairns, mostly inland, around the hills, the ranges. So look out for that. Now, as we go to Tuesday of next week, all eyes are on what is going on here east of Sydney. Big storm, East Coast storm, developing here on Tuesday with the high pressure zone moving into South Australia, calming things down in Adelaide and Ceduna and Whyalla and Port Lincoln and all those places, but it's still a few showers around. Now you go into Victoria, and the further you go eastwards, the windier it gets. Coming in here to the southeast corner, places like Merimbula, getting some very windy weather coming through there, and then getting gusty conditions coming up maybe into the A.C.T, Canberra, and fanning out into parts of New South Wales. Heavier rain in the southeast corner, much drier in the southwest corner. Not as much to talk about, and we're still seeing the usual thunderstorms in the north and around Queensland, although because of this high ballooning up into the tropical area, the red tropical boundary gets pushed further northwards, which does break the humidity to some degree. So there will be some thunderstorms. Then that southerly wind or southwesterly wind will help to dry skies out for you in Queensland. This low is definitely worth keeping an eye on. By Wednesday, it's mostly gone, although it's heading off towards where I am in New Zealand. But high pressure, calming things down in Victoria, Tasmania, up to New South Wales and the A.C.T, and flushing away those thunderstorms and the humidity over the southern 2/3 of Queensland, and even to some degree here into the Northern Territory, giving Alice Springs a break from the heat and the humidity. And the thunderstorms around Katherine, the top end, the Kimberley, Pilbara, aren't looking as big and as bad as we go into the middle of next week. So we may be seeing a bit of an easing back of conditions, but it's still got this kind of spring vibe to me, where it's unsettled for some of you in the south, polar changes coming through, and then a few days later you see the tropical boundary sinking almost right down to the coastline, the southern coastline of Western Australia. So it's a turbulent up and down forecast, even though there is not a huge amount of severe weather in the forecast at this point. But we'll be obviously looking at what goes on early next week in the southeast. Speaking of that, I don't have a video tomorrow, Friday. Apologies for that, but I will be back again on Monday, and we'll be taking a much closer look at not only how Monday is shaping up, but also how the first week or two of December is looking. So have a great weekend when it gets around, and I'll see you next week on Monday.